Melbourne Storm players are tonight New Zealand bound to play the Warriors, leaving behind the swirling controversy that continues over salary cap breaches. The players say they're keen to rebuild the club, but that's looking increasingly difficult. Yesterday, the 4 independent directors of Melbourne Storm were sacked by News Limited, owner of the club. I interviewed one of those ex-directors, Maher. Peter Maher, thank you for coming on to State Line.
Pleasure, Joe.
Do you know what's going to happen with the players? Are they determined to play, continue to put together a team, or could circumstances overtake that?
The players throughout all of this, I must say, have been so resilient and they've been so committed to go away to continue to play. I will be most surprised that the players stop playing. The one thing that's been most disconcerting for the players in the last 24 hours is the news that the directors were removed or sacked because we would not contribute to the inquiry that was commissioned by News Limited in conjunction with Deloitte. Now, none of those players also contributed to that inquiry. And they're obviously most concerned as well that they may suffer the same fate as what we have suffered. So they would certainly like some confirmation from their employers, News Limited, that they're not going to suffer the same fate as us.
And they haven't had that confirmation?
Not that I'm aware of. I have not spoken with all of them, but those players that did ring this morning to offer their support, those that I did speak with were quite concerned.
So why didn't you, and the players for that matter, cooperate with this internal or this investigation?
Joe, we would have cooperated with any proper NRL commissioned independent survey. We were more than interested and prepared to do that at all times. But this was an investigation that was commissioned by News Limited on behalf of News Limited by Deloitte. We had no guarantee of confidentiality of what was going to be said within that actual report. As to who was going to see that report, we were never told who that would actually be. And even now, when this report has been released, we're told there's only one person who's going to outside of News Limited, and that's David Gallop from the NRL. And what also beggars belief as well is that David Gallop has also said last evening that he accepts that report in full, even though he's not read one word or one page of that report.
But how do you know it wasn't going to be independent? Presumably they're an independent company. Why didn't you take part in the investigation and then decide after seeing the results?
Because that word that you just used, independent. Independence means you don't have any proportional representation involved in it. That's what independence means. So if you go away and you have the game itself that conducts the inquiry, it was the game that handed out the penalties. It was the game, the league itself, the NRL. It was they that took away the 2 premierships from us. They in turn should have been the ones that had conducted the inquiry. And may I say, Joe, they should have conducted that inquiry prior to taking away the 2 premierships from us. They should not have spent an hour and a half making a decision that they didn't have any firm evidence on, and they still do not have any firm evidence of, apart from this document that is about to be handed to them from News Limited.
Now, this whole scandal, if you like, revolves around who knew what. Did you know about these other papers?
No, I had absolutely no idea. We became
Your independent colleagues, did they know?
No, as far as I'm aware, not any of them have known at all. We were surprised and as staggered as what most people were when that did occur.
The players, to your knowledge, did they know?
That's a question, again, you have to go away and ask the players, but not only ask the players, ask the player managers as well. The players are very much responsible, obviously, for what they do on the football field, but off the football field, their life is really dictated to by those player managers. It's they who determine what they do basically away from football. So it's those people you would have to go and ask that question of, as well as the players.
So what do you call on the management and the players to do then?
Well, it's up to those management and those players now as to what happens next. But the only way I can see that happening next, Joe, is if you get a proper independent inquiry into what's actually occurred. The other thing is that the court case will tell us. The court case will also tell us exactly whether due process was adhered to on that fateful day on April 22. Both of those things should occur. I agree with that.
But you've fessed up, as have your colleagues, that you didn't know. Don't you think the players and their management should fess up as to what they knew?
Most certainly, and that's a question that should be put to them.
Just finally, what do you think of the role News Limited has played in all this, and what do you think they knew?
News Limited's role in this will be analysed by people probably much more objective and less emotional than what I am at this particular state. And when those people have that their say, I think what is being said there will make very, very interesting reading. The only thing I do hope, and I seriously mean this, is if it does transpire in the future that there was other people in News Limited who didn't know what was going on, I hope they're treated in the same manner as those two employees were treated yesterday. Because the manner in which those two employees were treated yesterday and the way they were publicly condemned like that before they had a chance to answer any accusation, I thought was absolutely deplorable. So no respect was shown to them. I would not imagine the same level of respect or little respect should be shown to anyone else higher up in News Limited if it's found that they had any knowledge of what has transpired here.
Do you suspect they did have knowledge?
I don't know that. That's not a question for me to answer. That's a question for those other two News Limited appointed directors, Frank Stanton and Craig Watt. That's questions for them to answer, and that's also a question for the executives of News Limited to answer.
Peter Maher, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, Joe.